What's going on, family? Andre Velat here, host of the Freedom Seeker podcast. And today it's a little different. It's a little different. I just kind of experienced something, kind of took away some lessons and some blessings from that. And I just wanted to share it, like I know you guys, anybody who's like a day one follower, listener, whatever, you're a freedom seeker. If you're a freedom seeker, obviously, like, you know that I recently created a podcast, right? So I'm a podcaster. And I love the idea of podcasting, but not everyone necessarily knows why I jumped into podcasting. And I don't mean why as far as like, when you listen and you hear me saying that, I believe that people need to understand that, the limitations that are put in their head by social norms are BS, right? I don't mean that, I don't mean when I say that, since I was 5, I felt like I needed to, get myself to higher heights so I could, reach back down and say, hey, my people, let's rise up. I don't mean that. I mean, as far as like logistics behind the scenes, and that stems from the fact that initially I didn't even want to, I shouldn't say want to. I didn't have an inclination, right? I didn't have any aspirations to do a podcast, but you look around and you listen to others and others who know things that you don't know and you learn, right? And many are saying that the era of the webinar is dying. The podcast is the new thing, and not the new thing, but the new thing as far as the new vehicle, right? Because people have busy lives. Not necessarily everybody wants to jump onto a webinar. So now it's more podcasting and vlogging, right? That seems to be more effective, right? Some people prefer to just vlog because it gets similar results. It's also able to use video. It's also able to be transferred to a podcast afterwards. And that means you've made 2 pieces of content in one. And, content creation has always been, something that was an issue for people starting out. So this killed 3 birds in one stone, effectively, right? That's why I looked into podcasting. Now, when you first get into it, and you're getting people scheduled for interviews and whatnot, you may get somebody scheduled for an interview who has never even been interviewed. Right? You may get people who've barely been interviewed, but as you start to grab people for these interviews who have, have a little more expertise, they've got more miles on the tires, so to speak, right? You've got your system of setting things up. They've got their system of setting things up, and when it's smooth, it's smooth, but when it's not, it could be a very bumpy road, right? When you first set out to interview that someone who's a little more established, and you get things started, right? You run into, well, here's my system, right? Wait, but I want to use my system because I'm used to that. Okay, cool. So, do we use Google Calendar? Do we use Zoom? Do we use StreamYard? Do we do video? Do we do no video, right? A lot of things that for someone who's starting out, like you may run into these roadblocks. And when I say roadblocks, I mean that recently I've set up, I want to say 2 or 3 interviews that didn't actually happen, right? They just didn't happen for one reason or another. And when I really look at it today, right, I just literally like my time frame for, excuse me, one moment. I just realized the battery is dying on the computer and that would suck. So we're going to plug her in. But, I just literally came out of a time slot that in order to achieve that time slot, okay, we're good. In order to achieve that time slot, I had to move some things around, and, I'm not going to name names, but, the person, the entrepreneur who I was going to interview, actually wanted to get some things put out this year, like before the end of the year. So I moved things around. I know he moved things around as well. And at the end of the day, we ran into that, my system, your system, et cetera, et cetera. I actually was like, you know what? He's busy. I'm busy. Let's just make life easy. We'll go ahead and use his system and, all will be well. Well, to give you the long and shorts, right? I'm not used to using Google Calendar as my reminder. I'm used to actually just looking at my Zoom or my Calendly. And, when I didn't have that scheduled in my Zoom and I didn't have that scheduled in my Calendly, I had to turn around and say, hey, give me, 3 to 5 minutes. I'm running into some issues jumping on, or maybe send me the link. I'm doing those messages through Facebook Messenger because that's where we connected initially. But that individual is not paying attention to Facebook Messenger right now because they don't do things the way that I do things, right? That can be frustrating. I literally sent him a message saying, hey, I know initially, the first thought process, right, is, throw stones at one or one throws stones at another, right? Get frustrated with each other, oh, this isn't professional. This person's not professional. This person missed this person missed that. And at the end of the day, that's not the truth, man. I mean, it could be looked at that way, and it could actually be the truth. Don't get me wrong. It could be. But when we actually got back together and talked, it's like both of us are like, no, that wasn't the intent. It just didn't work out the way that it needed to. And, we're going to reschedule and move forward. But if you put yourself in the mindset of thinking of those possibilities of those problems, just like anything else, right? Like, if you know me personally, I'm a sales expert of, 20, 25 years, right? So when it comes down to it, I know very well in my sales process that every time I do something, right? Every time I do that sales process is repetition, and I'm learning my niche, and I'm learning their objections, and I'm learning how to combat those negatives head on. I know to do that in sales. I know that if you change my product tomorrow, I'm just going to look for a lot of repetition, right? I want to shoot the ball and shoot the ball and shoot the ball. I want to practice free throws until I can do the free throws like this, eyes closed. You know what I mean? Like without an issue. And I stopped and thought about it, and I said, damn, like I'm a little frustrated. Like I cut my gym time short, right? I'm about to get done with this video and go back to the gym to finish up, my regimen, right? So getting frustrated, like I said, it's human, you know what I mean? And I'm sure he was frustrated too. But at the end of the day, if one of us, regardless, I don't care who it was, I prefer it to be me, but if one of us was to think of this and say, okay, just like anything else, right? I want to learn from this experience, right? I don't want to look at this as failure. I don't want to look at this as an obstacle, right? I want to look at this as a piece of data that I can analyze, right? And say, hey, how can I avoid this in the future, right? This was just a rebuttal that I didn't know how to combat head on, right? So now moving forward, I want to say, hey, you know what? We can set up on your system. We can set up on my system. I don't care. But I'm actually going to take time, not just assume as I expect people to assume with me. If I schedule an interview with you, I don't care if we spoke for the next 2 weeks between that 3-week stretch or that 1 month or that 2-month stretch. Damn well be sure I'm going to be there, right? And if something happens, you're going to hear from me. And, we're going to be able to reschedule, right? Like, that's my thought process on it. Like, I'm kind of a, seat of the pants guy, right? Like, whatever, you know what I mean? Just play it by ear. We schedule. And, if something happens, it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? As long as I know that we're still down to the same goal, right? But moving forward, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not just going to leave it to chance, right? Moving forward, I'm going to make sure that I follow up and possibly even automate that follow-up. I don't care. But I'm going to make sure that, the link is there already. You know what I mean? That I have access to it. Now, in my system, I always have access to it. That's why I like using my system, right? But if I do a follow-up, yeah, I feel comfortable because I have the link. So even if you use my system, how about I make sure that you have the link ahead of time as well? How about I make sure that you have confirmation? How about, maybe a week out, or let's say I schedule it for a week out, right? Let's say no matter what, 3 days before the interview, just a quick message that says, hey, I'm really excited about, the interview that we're going to do. And these are the things that, we had set out to talk about. And I just want to make sure that, we're still confirmed for that. Right. And it sounds stupid to say it because it sounds like common sense. Right. But at the end of the day, especially in the world, this COVID-19 world that we're living in right now, I don't know. I've been noticing that all the entrepreneurs that I network with have wound up being more busy. You know what I mean? So I know I normally don't do, podcast episodes like this, but I thought it would be powerful just to share the experience, right? I mean, I feel like my system is pretty well put together, and I haven't ran into these issues at all. I didn't run into these issues with the launch. I haven't ran into these issues with any other episodes, but this is near the holidays. And to me, it's just grind time. Whatever, right? Like, I've taken my time off for the family. I've taken my time off to do things. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at it like, yo, there's extra time for me to do things. I'm not working the day job right now, right? I don't have as much hustle and bustle on the other things that I don't have control over. So for the things that I do have control over, I'm trying to, pedal to the metal, right? But bear in mind, and this is me speaking to myself, but also me speaking to you, because I hope that it brings you value. But bear in mind that everybody's story is different. Everybody's life is structured different. Everybody's schedule is different. And everybody's mentality and thought process is different. So don't be shocked when you get a message the same day of the interview, 25 minutes prior, while you're in the gym, because you've cut your gym time short and you already know it's going to start at 11, right? Don't be surprised if you get a message that says, hey, I haven't received any confirmation, even though you set this up on someone else's system that you expect to give them confirmation, right? Always combat the negative head on, right? I go back to the sales process for one reason. For those of you who don't know, I've been a corporate trainer for, well, I shouldn't say I've been, because I'm not currently, right? But in the past, I have been a corporate trainer for, 30, 50, 100 agents at a time, right? 100 sales reps at a time, 30 sales reps at a time, 50 sales reps at a time. And I draw a lot from that past life, so to speak, right? In that past life, in that past job, I used to tell people all the time, and I would train a lot of people who had no sales experience. And I would tell people all the time, listen, what you've got to understand is that sales is nothing more than communication. Communication is nothing more than speaking. And you've been speaking pretty much since you started walking, right? So sales is life, right? The more I understand the person that I'm speaking to, the more I understand the goal of the person that I'm speaking to, the more I can help that person get to that goal. And it doesn't matter if that was giving someone directions or if that was selling someone a product. It's all the same. So not only did I use that as a mantra of my training, but also I look at myself as, a constant student, right? Because that's what life is. To me, life is being a student. And the minute you stop being a student is the moment you start dying, because you're no longer growing. And if you're not growing, if you're not going this way, then what are you doing? You're going this way. If you're not expanding, you're contracting, right? So not only do I put out what I'm saying, I also try to make sure that I take in, because just because you've learned something doesn't mean that you're a master at it. And even if you've become a master at it, doesn't mean that you continue to stay a master at it. Because if you're not using the muscle, you're losing the muscle. And what is the muscle we're speaking of? The brain. So guys, let me wrap it up, man. Let me wrap it up. You probably already know what I'm going to say, but you don't, because I'm going to insert something. I'm going to insert something that I saw this morning in the midst of my motivational videos. What it is actually Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was quoted saying this, and I'm sure you've at least heard the name. If you haven't heard the name, it is what it is. But the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are stronger in the broken places. That's the Hemingway. That's the Hemingway quote. Excuse me for stumbling on my words. But you will never grow if you never take an active role in growing, right? So here's what I'm gonna say. If you woke up this morning, you're blessed, and you already know it, because you can still take action, right? And if you can start with that mindset, you can move mountains. So do yourself a favor and be grateful. Be grateful for what you have. Don't compare yourself to others. Use what you have and build on it, and make that meaningful. Understand that literally it will take an inhuman amount of work. So be prepared to put yourself in situations that will make you uncomfortable, and look at those obstacles as tools to learn from rather than obstacles, right? Sign up to overcome the obstacles. Don't sign up for the championship ring, because you're not there yet. Why aren't you there yet? Because you still haven't signed up for learning the championship activities, period. right? So in order to achieve the goals that you have, you're going to have to push yourself harder than you ever have in the past, learn more than you ever have before. You're going to have to push yourself past your breaking point. So I suggest this. If you're physically training to run until you vomit. If you're studying, study until you fall asleep with your face in the book. Just push and push and push and push and push until you wake up the person that you needed to be to accomplish your goals. Peace and love. I'm out.